Hello, everyone. This is Howard Fox, and welcome back for another episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series, the podcast that celebrates individuals and families, businesses, and organizations that seek out and promote the exploration, stewardship, conservation, access, and enjoyment of the outdoors. Now, today I'm going to add the word mindfulness because I am excited to have a good friend of mine on today's podcast episode, Carrie-Ann Tkaczyk. Now, Carrie-Ann is a professional coach, a mindfulness expert, and an outdoor enthusiast who, together with her husband, took to the road 3 years ago while coaching and leading mindfulness meditation. Carrie-Ann, it's good to see you virtually. How are you doing?
Good, Howard. It's really good to see you too.
Fantastic. Now, for our listeners, I can tell Carrie-Ann is no longer on the road with her husband, that she is in her house. And for our listeners, where are you located in the U.S. somewhere?
I am in Sisters, Oregon. And we've been here just for a couple months. So I've been off the road just for a couple months. Whenever I'm running water, I still feel the need to conserve and be careful because I'm going to fill the tank somehow.
Right. That's, I think, the three biggest fears is running water or fresh water, where to put the bad water, that goes into the black
The
tank,
gray and black.
gray and black, and how am I going to get an internet connection? Because I have this dream of coaching on the road. I mean, I sit a
Yeah.
lot, too much, I might add, but to be able to podcast and coach from the road, there's just something about that. And
Yeah.
I was excited. You and I met a couple months ago. You and our good friend Kathy, you put on this workshop for us on mindfulness and the coaching program that Kathy has started. And when I learned that you and your husband had lived on the road in an RV, I thought, well, there's a story, and here we are.
Yes. Yeah. We made a conscious decision to sell everything, make a huge change. It was right at the end of COVID, so I'm
Okay,
sure COVID had something to do with it. I was
sure.
a night nurse for my father for a short time. He died a couple months after. I was helping him for about a month, and because the facility he was in was hit so strongly with COVID, they couldn't take care of him
Oh,
without him
wow.
getting COVID. So
Gotcha.
he moved into my brother's, and I moved in and took care of him. And my husband and I would talk just on the phone every day, and I kept dreaming about being in motion.
Mm,
And I called my husband and I said, I don't know why, but I can't do this anymore. I've got to move. And he was just about to start looking for a new job. His job had ended. And so I said, don't look for a new job. Can we just put our house on the market? Our kids, my daughter had just entered college. Well, she was in college, and
hmm
just because of COVID, she stayed at home for a while in college, but she just transitioned to being at university. And
right.
my other two kids were off, and I said, let's do it. Let's go. And so we didn't know anything. I'd never even really been in a trailer. So I came home. Honestly, month later, we bought a little trailer, a little R-Pod, and which was very tiny and
Yeah.
not the best decision if you're going to live in a trailer. But I was thinking size and travel, um, and then my dad passed, and then my mother passed a couple months later
Oh, wow.
unexpectedly, and then a month later, boom, me, Dwayne, and our dog Neo, we were gone. We
Okay.
decided to travel the West, and we did for 2.5 years. We were on the road.
Okay. So I have to ask, uh, are you the type of person, if you're going to plan something, do you just like jump all in, or do you have to put a spreadsheet and processes and checklists in place?
um, well, let me say this. When I was in my 20s, I traveled a bit. I was in the Peace Corps and I moved around a little bit. But I always had a job, like a Peace
Okay.
Corps job or a job overseas or something.
hmm
I've never in my life just leapt like this, ever.
hmm
And so there's that. I also was a teacher, so teachers are pretty methodical about certain things, and I
Hmm.
was used to that. And my partner is, he's an engineer, so
Hmm.
lists and so but we bought a big map and we charted out a sort of a path, but
Hmm.
I would say maybe 2 months in, we realized that we didn't want the path to determine us. We realized that the land needed to tell us where to go next. So we
Okay.
jettisoned that and we talked to people and we followed the land.
Okay. When you say follow the land, I mean, you're up in Oregon, which I just did an episode with the folks on the Oregon coast. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's like 377 miles of Oregon coast. And we were literally, the podcast was about all these special areas. You could have stayed in Oregon for the rest of your life and followed the land, but you went on a journey. And when you threw away the map and you said, let the land tell us where to go, how did you know what the land was telling you?
Yeah, that's a good question. When we first started this trip, I had this things were pretty crazy at the end of COVID. You know that. There's a
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
chaos and fracturing in society, and there's a lot of contention in my workplace.
Hmm.
And I thought, I just want to connect with people again. And I
Hmm.
and that was my original intention. But then as we traveled, we ended up seeing beautiful places, national parks. Let me give you an example. We went to Arches National Park, and it
Mm.
happened to be some kind of national park day. And so all these rangers were standing around talking to people. And I said to the ranger, "Well, I'd like to go to another national park, but I don't have one scheduled for a while, and I know you have to schedule." And she goes, "Well, national monuments are often really open." And she recommended this place called Hovenweep.
Okay.
And so the next day, Dwayne and I put the trailer together and we drove what felt like forever past wild horses and into the desert. And I'd never really been in the desert before. This was my first movement into the desert. And we went to Hovenweep and there were like two other people there. And it was
Mm-hmm.
quiet and beautiful. And there was this ancient, there are two canyons. And then around that, ruins of the Anasazi or the ancient Pueblo. And we ended up spending a week there. And he and I looked at each other and we said, "This is what we want." And
Okay.
after that, we just went to these places like Chaco Canyon, right? We went down to the border of Mexico and we boondocked
Okay.
for a month at a place just because we heard it had a hot spring.
Okay. Okay.
Um, yeah, that was what we did. We stopped making plans and we talked to people and they'd say, "Oh, have you tried this?" or "Think about this." Or we were driving by uh kind of near Death Valley. There's a national park or monument that has these the little blue fish that come up
Uh,
only at
um,
certain.
Ash Meadows.
Yes, Ash Meadows, and we saw
That's
Ash
one of my
Meadows.
favorite places.
Yes, and so we just pulled in and said, "Oh my goodness, this is amazing," and
Yeah.
we toured, and that was what we did, and in fact, our blog was called Following Wonder, and that
Okay.
was the so we decided we only had one parameter, and that was to stick with the West, and then we
Mhm.
had a rule, um, no more than 3 what was it? Do not get to a place after 3 o'clock. Um, stay wherever you stay at least 3 days,
Mhm.
and try to be in the car no more than 3 hours of driving.
I love it.
And so that was our kind of our rule. Sometimes we drove maybe 4 hours, but the
Right.
3-3-3 was our rhythm,
Right.
and sometimes we stayed someplace a couple weeks. The place we went boondocking on the border of, Hovenweep? No, Holtville, we were there for a month.
Okay. So, I'm curious, when you and your husband embarked with your dog, Neo, and
Yeah.
Neo, I'm making the assumption that Neo is related to the Matrix, or is that
Yes.
okay?
His name was
I
Neil, and we didn't like it, so we changed it to something similar, but we
okay.
loved Neo.
Okay, that's perfect. It's 3 o'clock on a Friday, and my brain cells are still working. I can make these connections.
Yeah,
So,
he was the one for us.
okay. So when you set out, was being connected via cellular phone, internet, Wi-Fi, was that important to you?
It was to me for one reason only, and that is, while we were doing this journey, I was starting up my personal business
Okay,
of coaching, and I was leading mindfulness sessions every Sunday. And
okay.
so I had to be able to, no matter where we went. So and I would sometimes lead like we were in Canada actually, and we were camping off grid, and I had to lead a 3-hour session the next day. Um, and so we drove out to where there was cell phone and I could get a hotspot. We pulled over to the side of the road, and I'm in the trailer on the side of the road using my hotspot, leading a 3-hour session. And that's when I said, "All right, we need something a little better than this." And so we did get Starlink, and I know there's some contention around Starlink or not, but for what I needed, it worked. We could set up Starlink anywhere. I used it in Death Valley, I used it in Phil, and I had a consistent source of the only time I think we had problems was one place where there were too many palm trees around us.
Okay. See, and that is helpful. So for anyone that is off on the road, because whether you have the hotspot or the Starlink, and all the contention in the world right now, if I was going to deal with this, I think unless there's an alternative I'm just not aware of,
Yeah,
I would have to get a mobile Starlink to be able to
yeah.
accomplish
I
this.
couldn't have done what I did without it. I really couldn't
Okay.
have.
And that's important because that's bringing in, putting dollars in the bank account, allowing you to do your work and serving the need and the people that need your help.
Yeah, yeah. I
Okay.
could do my mindfulness in nature.
Mhm. Not a bad
I
place
could
for that.
no, and that was important to me. I started to lead more and more nature-based mindfulness classes, and
Mhm.
I could coach from wherever, and I was
Mhm.
mentoring as well, and so there were different times scheduled, and we were able to work all that in
Okay.
seamlessly. I never missed anything, not once.
You are inspiring me to no end right now, Carrie, and I have to tell you this. You're gonna be my go-to resource, by the way, you and Dwayne.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna get one question out of the way because everybody asks it on the internet. When you're on the road and you're in these places that are somewhat remote, or maybe where they were so remote that you didn't have facilities like to do what you have to take care of Mother Nature, get a good hot shower, wash your hair. Well, how did you deal with that obstacle?
So, can I add something to that too?
Okay.
There's also, when I was researching being in these remote boondocking places as a woman,
Right.
I felt a lot of fear coming out of the internet too. So I want to
I
add to that.
yes.
So first of all, Dwayne and I got very, very good at conserving water. That's why I was telling you when I moved here, every time I turned the water on, I was like, oh, waste. But we got very good at conserving water. For example, when we were at Holtville for a month, I think we only had to find a station to dump our black and gray 2 times
Mhm.
the entire month, and that is pretty remarkable. We had bins so that we could wash dishes outside and do things like that. We had an outdoor shower,
Okay.
that was built into our second we ended up getting a different, trailer. We got a
Okay.
Cougar MLS 22, which, by the way, if you're ever looking for a 27-foot trailer that is, 4 season and solid, that's the one. Man, it
Okay.
was wonderful, very comfortable. But, yeah, we didn't have, any problems. I never felt like I was really roughing it in that way, because we had the trailer. But again, I'm a person who'd been camping, tent camping, and so I
Yeah.
compared to tent camping, this is so luxurious. We have heated seats and
Yeah.
We could use a generator if we had to, and
Okay.
sometimes we did. We had solar,
Okay.
we had some solar panels. Again, married to an engineer, so he liked to play with all that stuff.
Of course.
So in terms of that, no, when you have a trailer, you can figure out how to make all that work. Boondocking is not a problem. My concern was safety. I was very
Okay.
worried. I heard when you go boondocking, you shouldn't knock on people's doors. And I discovered, Howard, it was just the opposite. And at first I was afraid. I'll admit, I was really afraid to talk to people. I didn't
Hmm.
know what kind of reception I would get. But time and time again, people would see us walking our dog all the time and they'd stop and they'd talk to us, and everyone had stories to tell. And
Okay.
that's just it. It wasn't about being on the road changed my frame, right? I know right now we're living in a world where I think political frame is strong, but when
Hmm.
you're on the road, the frame is, "Where'd you come from?" The
Hmm.
question's always, "So where'd you come from? Where are you going?" It's about meeting other travelers. What made you get on the road? How long have you been on the road? What
Hmm.
kind of rig do you have?
Hmm.
You have this whole world of conversation, and I don't even know what the politics was of most people unless they were showing that with signs or banners or something. But most
Right.
people, it was really just a connection of place. Not once did we find ourselves feeling unsafe.
Okay. Well, that's actually very good to hear. Because it's my roommate's boyfriend likes to say everything you see on the internet is true. Well, let me rephrase that. Of course, everything you hear on the internet is true. That's his go-to saying.
Yeah.
And I mean, you have to read, you have to explore, you have to get enough evidence to say what is true, what is not. Doesn't mean you don't want to be mindful of where you're at, who you're talking to, but it's not something that should put you into fight or flight.
No,
And
and in fact, I'm comfortable now going out on trails. I hike every day almost now, which is something
mhm,
I didn't do before. And I'll go out just me and my dog, or
mhm,
when I was training to do the rim to rim in the Grand Canyon, which I did in September, I was out on my own a lot. You meet other travelers on the trail. People say hi. It's a different community out there.
right. Wow. So I have one more logistical question because I like again, you're going to be my go-to right now for how do I accomplish this? Well, actually, two questions. One, when you sold your house,
Yeah.
did you sell all your belongings or did you put those in storage somewhere?
Um, so we sold a lot of our belongings. We gave, some away to,
Okay.
like, there's an organization, and we came from Portland, Oregon, that, would give to refugees, and so we gave
Hmm.
quite a bit to that organization. And, yeah, and we put some things in storage. So we did
Right.
all of the above, but not much in storage. We really tried to be, careful with that. We didn't want
That
too
That adds
much.
up so quickly, and
Yeah,
I mean, that they lowered my bill recently, and now it's back up, and it's like, "This is killing me. It's killing
yeah.
me." So, okay, cool. I appreciate that. Next question. When you're coaching or facilitating a mindfulness workshop, I have this vision in my mind of, yes, I could do some of this work in the confines of the RV, but I also have this desire to put up the awning, have a nice chair overlooking the nice scenery, and I have my mic, I've got my headset
Mhm.
on. I there's not a lot, and I have there's some the tools out there to edit the podcast, the audio are pretty good these days, but that's what I wanna be able to do, sit outside, coach my clients, or have this podcast, and so how did you decide on where the best place was for you to facilitate the work that you were doing, or is it just at
Yeah.
wherever the wind took you?
Well, weather, was a part of it. We started to really make sure that we were, in places where we could be outside more,
Mhm,
and, for sure, Howard, I I actually, if you go to on Insight Timer, I have some meditations I recorded
mhm,
outside.
okay,
I did some sessions outside. And I'm not the only one to do that. We were watching this guy who had rigged up a big screen built into his trailer, and he led personal physical training sessions from outside his trailer, and he had all this gear out there, and he was doing that. Um, Lots of people. My brother right now is doing the trailer life, and he's down in Florida, and he's an avidly works out. He and his wife, and he was just sending me pictures yesterday of how they use a TRX. By the way, TRX is your friend if you are
Right.
on the road because it's easy to set up on any tree, weight bearing. Yeah, so I did, if at night or particularly windy or whatever, I would be inside. But I did do a lot, especially my mindfulness, but a lot of coaching too outside.
I love that. And
Yeah,
okay. I just did an interview with a gentleman. He is a digital nomad,
yeah.
which is what we're talking about
Hmm.
for yourself. But he spends half the year. He doesn't want cold climates. He only wants warm
Yeah,
climates. So he spends half the year on a boat in Virginia, and then he goes out in search of warm climates elsewhere. Right now, he's in Bali, and but he's got the being the digital nomad existence, uh, managing your business
yeah,
all laid out.
yeah. Cool.
Has the experience of this adventure changed for you, perhaps even your husband as an engineer, when it comes to just our self-awareness, our mental health, and just our well-being? What's changed for you because you did embark on this type of adventure?
My frame on everything has changed. So first of all, in terms of resilience and just being able to do things day to day, I was coming from Portland over the mountain pass yesterday, or yeah, yesterday, and there was a big snowstorm in the mountain pass, right? And so the old Carrie would say, "Oh man, driving over that with this car is going to be really scary. You have to put on chains. How hard?" Instead, none of it was. In fact, it was just glorious. I put on the chains, drove to a winter wonderland, came on the other side calmly with joy.
Mhm,
That is not how I used to be.
mhm,
So there's that. But there's also my frame has changed about where I get my nourishment. I I'm no good to anyone if I follow and fall into the chaos or frustrations that people are feeling. And I'm not saying it's not there to be aware, but
mhm,
I um I have learned, for example, that let me give you an example of the desert, right? I'd never been to the desert before this trip, and I thought they were just desolate, barren, dry. There's nothing there. And
oh,
I've
no.
learned that they are so alive and they burst with life. So I brought this little Akiatio with me just to kind of have here. This is
Oh,
our
yeah.
favorite, my husband and I, it's our favorite. Well, maybe the creosote's my favorite, but the Akiatio is right up there. And this bush, when there's an arroyo, which was the name of our trailer, but it also means like the wash, right? When there's the sudden flash flood in the desert. And again, more people drown in flash floods and bodies of water than in the desert than any other body of water. I don't think
Right.
people realize that because when the water comes, the land shifts and changes.
Oh, yeah.
And what you have to do then, like the Ocotillo, is find those times to bloom.
Mhm,
And then when it gets dry and hot, you learn to conserve and you learn to go inward.
mhm,
And that's what the earliest people on the in the West did, right? The early Pueblans, you saw evidence of that everywhere where they would pick up and move their civilization depending on the whims of the desert.
mhm,
Because everything changes and the desert is whimsical,
right.
more so than any other land. And so I think that's my takeaway is that the land the land is where I get my nourishment, and so change is inevitable. It's a part of the world, it's a part
Mhm,
of nature, and it's a part of my life, and
mhm,
I can choose to allow the torrent of change to drown in it, or I can
mhm,
choose to be like the Akitio and stand off to the side and find my nourishment from it, and that's what I do now. That's my frame. I feel very
right.
grounded in a way I don't think I've ever been in my life.
Okay. Oh, no, I love
Oh,
that.
and I'll add this too. Um, I wanted to find connection in this country and something, and I did. I love this country in a way I didn't when I started this trip. Truthfully, I didn't love it to the depth that I do now, and I love it because I love the land. We live in a beautiful place. I've been in many places around the world, and I
Mhm.
have to say, spending a few years in the desert of the Southwest, I have seen wonder, and I feel more connected to where I live here in Sisters and in the desert than I ever did before. I feel very blessed and lucky to live here, and I don't take that for granted.
Okay. No, I love that. Besides the impact on yourself and your husband, your dog, how has this work or this feeling experience informed or changed how you coach today?
Well, there are a few things. One, low hanging fruit. There are coaching organizations, mostly in Europe, but starting to come in the U.S. where you coach in nature.
Mm,
And that's something I'm beginning to explore more and more, doing my mindfulness in nature, my coaching in nature,
mhm,
connecting nature to coaching. So there's that.
mhm,
But there's also something deeper. I know I'm a lot more grounded in who
mhm,
I am and quiet and able to really listen to the person in front of me.
mm,
This time away from just the pressures of how my life had been prior has given me the space to really connect with people and to connect with what's real in front of me. And
mhm.
so when I'm coaching, that's the space I'm in, and I can feel the difference. And I know my clients do too. I'm getting the feedback,
Okay.
not just from them after, but in the moment, right?
Mm. How do you think this experience of being out in nature and this adventure that you have been on, how long would you perceive this will last for you, or do you suspect you're going to need to fill the cup up full again by just we got to get out again, or is this you've done it, you've got the experience, this is the pack of whatever you want to call it, it's full, it's charged, I'm good now.
Well, I still have the trailer.
Okay.
So, yeah, we're gonna keep that for sure. So we'll still have, travels and trips and all of that. But we don't live in the city anymore,
Hmm.
right? We live in a town of 3,000. We're behind our house is hundreds of miles of forest.
Mm,
We can, drive 5 minutes and we're away from people, completely. I think what we did was we found a spot that can give us the nourishment we want, and in the Pacific Northwest, which is where our family is.
okay.
And so that's really important too. I want to be near the people I love as well. So yeah, so again, we've only been here a couple months, but I'm I'm happy here. I finding the same calm here that I found on the road.
Okay. No, I love that. And your your experience and your story about what led up to needing or wanting to make this change is it is from my perspective it inspires others, it inspires me because I mean I've been here in Las Vegas for over 4 years now. I'm ready for a change again. And then one thing hearing you is I really do believe I can do my work anywhere in the world.
Mhm.
Why not enjoy this country of ours? And I am out west in Las Vegas, so
Huh.
I'm in the vicinity. And
Go for it,
and I
Howard.
yeah, there you go. And I think it's helpful for others who will listen to this podcast and make the connection between outdoor adventure, mindfulness, nature, mental health, really, that
Yeah.
you can do this. You can do this.
Yeah, a change like this helps you when you are living in 27 square feet and you have only a tank of, especially if you're boondocking, right? You just have your tank of water. You have your gray tank where the shower and then you have the black tank, right, from
Mhm.
the bathroom and the toilet. And that's it, right? And you know that you have only so long. It allows you to decide what's important, what isn't, right? You
Mhm.
start to conserve, you start to really think about what is important in that you need each day. And I think that that's a good thing for all people to experience.
Sure.
And getting out there, just breaking your rhythm of who's around you. I mean, when you're on
Mhm.
the road, you'd be surprised at how many people you meet. They're
Right.
interesting.
Yeah. You just said something that is, I think it really interests me. Thinking about your husband first,
Yeah.
what did he need every day? What was his, like, I've got to do, I don't care what we do, honey, but I need to do this every day. And then what was yours? What did you need every day?
Well, we both needed to hike every day. I would
Okay.
say that was we built our days around and our places around a hike.
Mm.
And so I think we both needed that, for sure. And then um, Dwayne needed time to um, to do his reading and his research. He was doing some research too. He ended up getting a degree in um, climate science and solutions while we were
Okay.
gone.
Okay.
So he needed time for that, and I needed the space and the quiet in order to do my coaching. So there were times when I was doing coaching and he just left, right? He
Mhm.
would, or I'd be outside and he'd be inside. So we had to navigate and negotiate that space,
Mhm.
um, which got pretty seamless. But in the beginning, it was a navigation, especially because there was really only one seat we both liked.
Okay.
So, but it became pretty easy. So yeah, there were different things we needed, but honestly, we both shared the need for a daily hike.
Okay.
That was our centerpiece of every day.
Okay.
And it still is.
Sure. By the way, I wasn't being as creative as you were. I was just thinking, I want a cup of coffee and see the
Uh,
sunrise, and I want a nice glass of iced tea, the occasional adult beverage when the sun sets. And if I'm
yeah.
near water, I'm a happy camper too. So,
Yeah. Well, Dwayne decided early in our marriage that his way to show consistent love for me was to make me coffee every day.
uh
So I get coffee every day when I wake up from him. I have our whole marriage, which is really sweet. Whether we're not getting along or getting along, the coffee is consistent. And so I definitely um, need and appreciate that in our marriage for sure.
okay. I love
Yeah.
it.
And getting that good cup of coffee is important.
Yes. So I'm curious, what are some of the resources besides your website and your blog, which I would love for you to share that with us in
Yeah.
a minute, but what resources would you recommend if if they're interested not only in the mindfulness and the mental health, climate change, getting ready to do this RV lifestyle, this nomad
Ah,
lifestyle, what are some of your go-tos?
well, first of all, if you do want to get an MLS Cougar 22, 27, or you're just thinking about it, I the Facebook pages, or Instagram pages, but I use Facebook, are helpful because you get to see the community. For example, um, the Facebook page for the Cougar is run by very intentional people who intentionally create community.
Mhm.
So people aren't on there. You might complain like something's wrong and then look for solutions, but they're not on there just sabotaging and complaining, which you see on some sites, right?
Oh yeah, oh
So
yeah.
you learn about the kinds of people who own these, and there's a rally for cougars. And so find the 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 kind of trailer or van and seek out what are their social media sites and what are the people who are drawn to them like.
The
Because I will
community.
say, yeah, that community was critical. I really loved the MLS Cougar 22 community. I can't say enough about how positive and affirming that the first night we bought it, we had an issue, and we posted it on there, and one of the moderators, messaged us his phone number, and we called him, and he talked us through fixing it. This
Ah,
guy doesn't know us from anyone. He just
mhm,
did it out of kindness.
mhm,
Like, that's amazing. So that's one thing I would say is find your community. You can find them on that share this interest with you, but
mhm.
one that is an affirming community.
Sure.
The other thing is if you're interested in coaching or nature coaching, there's a Climate Coach Alliance, and they do coaching in nature and within nature. And there are not as many Americans, more Europeans, but there are Americans doing this. And I go to the meetings all the time and um, the sessions, and it's really interesting just to see the kinds of coaching in nature, which is something I'm going to be doing more and more of that's out there. This is a growing field,
I
and it is beautiful to experience.
I have this sense that of this as well, and I don't know where it came from, but I'm meeting more and more folks that they believe as well there's a connection between our mental health
Hmm.
and nature
Yes.
and even the effects of climate change because I mean
Yeah,
it's on our doorstep right now, but
it is.
just being aware and doing what you can through the skills that you have as
Hmm.
coaches, we get to make a difference.
Hmm.
Okay. And I think it's growing, and I'm definitely going to be, I imagine I'll have some more guests on who are going to be from this organization. So you,
Yeah, and
I,
you're right. As coaches, we get to make a difference. And if you're looking for a coach, look for a coach. Try out coaching in nature. It's remarkable. You may have heard of nature bathing. That was a big thing a while ago. And it draws on some of the same concepts of when you're out in nature, you are just, there's an energy and a connection and that
mhm,
you start to become aware of.
mhm.
And or mindfulness in nature too. That's definitely a growing field as well.
Okay. You've shared so much, and I truly believe these are gifts of what you have shared today. And I'm wondering if there's any other, say, I would call it an aha moment. It's a term I use in my podcast episodes where you kind of look back and you realize, wow, I get to do this, or this is fantastic. It's been your aha moment of late.
Yeah, shake off that frame that we're alone, that we're disconnected, that we're fractured. Just take that frame and shake it off.
Okay.
We are not alone. You were saying earlier, Howard, before this idea that we're not an island unto ourselves, right? And we're not, right? We're part of something bigger. That when you are out in nature, you can find that connection. When you're out on the road, you can connect with people. So looking for something to happen to me, right? To or focusing just on things that are happening to me, um, create this sense of overwhelm. But when you put the frame on that we are connected to the world out there, and I can connect just by stepping out my backyard. Like you can do this in your backyard looking at stars. You can
Mhm.
do this work by bringing a plant in. You can do this work by just connecting with it.
Right.
I think that's my aha is the changing of my frame because I did feel stuck and I did feel alone and I did feel frustrated and I don't feel that anymore.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for that. Carrie-Ann, if our listeners would like to learn more about you and your work, where are the best places for them to go?
My LinkedIn, and also check out my blog. I will be publishing a book about this and my philosophies that came out of this time, and so that would be shared on my blog. And then my coach. If you're interested in my coaching or my mindfulness, you can go to my coaching website as well. So
Okay. Well, we'll provide the LinkedIn and the website
great.
links all on the show notes. By the way, I would love for our show notes if there's 5, 10, dozen photos of your experience that you could share, especially want to see your husband, you and your husband, Neo, some of the samples of your journey. I would love to be able to share that up on the show notes as well. And if you're open to doing that, and really, I want to thank you for really stepping into this, leading into this opportunity to be on this podcast because I'm finding the more I do this, especially this outdoor space is really fascinating. And there's so many ways to enjoy it and make it a part of your life. But in here today, there's a healing part of being outdoors and experiencing nature. And there's ways to do it. And I love the way you and your husband embarked on it. And it inspires me. So I appreciate that. So thank you for that gift and for
Thank
joining
you,
us today.
Howard. And when you get on the road, you're welcome to park your trailer in front of our house for a short time if you'd like.
I love it. I may just take you up on that.
It's
I
pretty
may.
out here.
I'll bet. All right. And I'll bring good coffee too, by the way.
All
I
right.
always bring
Yes.
good coffee.
We call it coffee love in our house.
There you go. Listen, thank you so
Thank you.
much. And stay on the line. We're going to do a quick close and then you and I can have a final chat. Okay.
Sounds good, Howard.
All
Thank you.
right. You're very welcome. All right, folks. We have just been chatting with Carrie-Ann Tkaczyk. Uh, I don't know. Where do we begin? Carrie-Ann, I mean, I had the great pleasure to participate in a coaching education opportunity not too long ago. And when I discovered it's her and her husband's RV lifestyle, and then this connection between nature and mental health and coaching, and now in nature, it's like there's things going on in the world. So I think new connections are being made, and really just what a great conversation today to hear about the journey Carrie-Ann and her husband were on, and really appreciate her taking the time to share that with us. Now we're going to provide a backlink to her coaching practice, as well as her blog and her social site. So you'll have all that up on our show notes, and really, so you can kind of lean in and learn more about, her various areas of interest. And really just, if you're interested in this lifestyle, this is a great affirmation that it's possible. Anybody can do it. Now, as for this episode, you can find us on our website, outdooradventureseries.com. We're also on LinkedIn and Facebook on our Outdoor Adventure Series pages. The video of this episode will be up on YouTube. And of course, you'll be able to listen to this episode wherever you listen to your podcasts. So until next time, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, go out there. We are living in strange times, unsettling times, but go out there and make a difference. Get out into nature, wherever that is. Here in Nevada, it's the desert. But if it's in Oregon, you're in the forest. But go find some solace in nature. Put your feet in the water, on the sand, walk the trail. But just get out there and take care of yourselves and be good to your neighbors, okay? Until next time, we look forward to having you join us on a future episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. Take care now.